Well, hello, friends. Guess who it is? It's your old pal, the recovered alcoholic, back with another episode of Deep and Effective Big Book Study. And guys, this is episode 22, step 8. That's right, the big Ocho in the house today. So we're going to be going over and breaking down step 8. So glad you could join me today. My friends, if you are new to the channel and you're enjoying this content, could you please consider subscribing, hit that thumbs up, and share it with some friends. For all of my returning customers, thank you so much for being here again. As always, I'm going to drop in my email right here. It's recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. I'm here to help you with any questions, comments, concerns you might have about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, steps, traditions, anything surrounding all that. Also, I'm offering my hand in sponsorship. Men, if you're out there looking for a spiritual experience, give me a holler. Ladies, if you're out there and you're listening to this, give me a holler as well, and I can point you in the right direction to some other ladies that can get you hooked up. So before we get going, we need to invite the big chief up into the house, so I'm going to take a moment of silence, and I'm going to follow it with the set-aside prayer. So if you care to join me, that's great. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the 12 steps, and especially you, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me to see the truth. And since this is the Deep and Effective Big Book Study, let's go to page 25, and I shall read. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences, which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. That sure is a beautiful promise. I love that. All right, so let's get down to business, shall we? Let's recap. Remember, up to this point, we're just coming off that inventory process and steps 6 and 7. So we now have a bunch of tools, spiritual tools in our toolkit. We have the principle of honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, and humility. Well, now we need to add another spiritual principle to that toolbox. And it's going to be the principle of brotherly love. Brotherly love with humility, right? And we're still on page 76, guys. And again, we see steps 8 and 9 getting bunched together quite often, just like 6 and 7 do. And that's fine. They go hand in hand. But we need to understand that each step stands on its own and brings its own unique individual principle to the table. And like I said, this is the principle of brotherly love with humility. Now I'm going to read this one simple paragraph on 76, and then we're going to break it down and see if we can find something deeper. Now let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we had harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. Now we go out to our fellows to repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed that at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. Okay, and we're going to stop there. That's all we need to read on page 76 pertaining to the 8th step. And I'm going to break down this paragraph I read, and then I want to shed some more light that surrounds this paragraph. So we also have the 8-step prayer right here. We don't hear about the 8-step prayer very much, but again, it's right here in black and white for us. The 8-step prayer is this: if we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. That's the 8-step prayer. And then it says, remember that it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. So we have to ask ourselves, well, who did I agree to do this with? So who was this agreement with? My sponsor? No. My sponsor is just a tour guide. Recovery is between God and I. That's who I make this agreement with. And when we understand that they're reminding us of this agreement that I made, it takes me all the way back to the 3rd step, when I remember that the 3rd step was that contractual agreement between God and I. He will provide everything I need if I stick close to him and perform his work well. Well, this is another example of the book telling us what my end of the deal is. My end of the deal will continue on with the restitution steps. Now, we have that one simple paragraph. right? And we have to remember that the instructions for step 8 are actually on page 59. And I'll read it. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. That's the simplicity of the step right there. Right? I've heard so many times people talk about, well, my sponsor has me break it up into categories, and my sponsor has 3x5 cards, and my sponsor this, and my sponsor that, and the treatment center says this. No. How simple is it on page 59? I simply need to make a list of all people I've harmed and then become willing to make amends to them all. That's the simplicity of it. Now, step 8 is just the list, right? But on the surface, it wouldn't seem to be that there's much going on. But when I really start to understand the principle behind the 8th step, the brotherly love, what I'm really starting to learn is that this is the step where I'm going to start to embrace forgiveness. And we see some examples of step 8 long before we get there. We start seeing the principle. We start seeing step 8 show up in the 4th step. And I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go to 66, and we're going to start to see the window into step 8, especially the principle of brotherly love right here on the bottom of 66. When it says that we turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future. And here it is. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. You see, that's what the 4th column is about. So what happens after I come out of this process of this inventory, right, in 6 and 7, and I now learn the truth about myself, okay? I learn that not only am I not the victim, I'm actually the victimizer. And what I learn is that all of these things that I've been holding you in contempt for are actually the same behaviors that I've been treating others with. So what happens is the inventory process levels the playing field, and it starts to cause me to see things from a completely different perspective. And it's this perspective right here, is that I learned that, well, I did those things that I did because I'm spiritually sick. So those people that hurt me the way they did, they're probably spiritually sick too. Are you with me? So if I'm going to move forward in the amends process and go out and expect to be forgiven for what I've done, then I have to be willing to offer forgiveness in return. Forgiveness is a two-way street. I can't just take it all. I have to be willing to give it. And then that leads us right in the top of 67 when we get into what's known as the sick man's prayer or the 4-step prayer or the angry man's prayer. And we have 2 prayers right here on the top of 67, and I'm going to read them. Because we're going to start to see what this is about: forgiveness, about brotherly love. And this is what he says: though we did not like their symptoms in the way they disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. See, that's what the inventory process teaches me. And here's one of the prayers. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that would cheerfully grant us sick from them. See, that's about brotherly love. That's about forgiveness. I can start viewing people as not bad or not evil, but just sick. Just like me. I'm not bad. I'm not evil. I'm sick. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? There's forgiveness right there. That's brotherly love. God, save me from being angry, thy will be done. So now let's jump over to page 70. Remember, we're still in the 4th step. And on the bottom of 70, they got some very important information to tell us. Right, we're going to see steps 8 and 9 right here on page 70. Right? We're going to see the principle of brotherly love. We're going to see the principle of justice. Right? And all the other, humility and honesty and open mind and willingness. It's all intertwined. Listen to what they say. If we've been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We've listed and analyzed our resentments, not yours, mine. We have begun to comprehend their futility and fatality. Another reminder that this stuff is going to kill me. We have commenced to see the terrible destructiveness. And here it is. Here's 8 right here. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies. For we now look on them as sick people. We have enlisted the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. There's steps 8 and 9 right there. Right there with interwoven within 4. Because this is what's setting the stage for me when I sit down to do this simple list. So on 66, when I read, we're going to be seeing things from a different perspective. That is what I'm taking into the 8th step. It's so much deeper than just pen to paper. It's about a new way of thinking, a new way of viewing myself and the world about me. That is what I'm taking into step 8. Now, as I sit down to make this list, right, some of it's going to come from my 4th step, and some of it's going to come from just everywhere else. This is another example where I'm being started to train and practice in prayer and meditation. I'm going to sit down and get quiet. And I'm going to start to really think about people I've harmed, who I've harmed, how I've harmed them. And then also, we're going to start to figure out the type of amends I'm going to make. Right? The 8th step is where I'm making my plan. I need a plan to move forward. And we just don't start the 9th step till we're done with the 8th step. No. 8 and 9 do go hand in hand. So I need to be writing and going out and handling my business. Remember, this is a practice that should continue for a lifetime. Right? We need to be remembering that we need to be moving rapidly through this work. There's no pausing, there's no waiting. There's no, I'll get around to it or I'll call you back in a week. No. Get pen to paper and start getting out there and making these amends. Because this is where the freedom really happens. This is where we start to become recovered alcoholics. Just real quick. We now understand that the principle behind the 8th step is brotherly love with humility. Because I'm starting to learn this is about forgiveness. Right? The inventory process levels the playing field for us so I can start to view you for what you are. This is exactly what I am. Sick. The human condition. We're all sick. And if I expect to be forgiven for my transgressions, then by God, I got to be willing to forgive you. And for me, this is where the true humility comes in, the restitution steps. Right? 8 and 9 is where the rubber meets the road for me. Because when I got to go out and truly right or wrong, right? This takes all the willingness that I can muster. When I got to sit down and look people in the eye and tell them how I've harmed them, how wrong I was, tell them about the mistakes I made. Give them an opportunity to tell me how I can make it right. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself before we get into the 9th step. So I just want to leave you guys with this in 8. As simple as it is, it's just a list. But what makes it so deep is the perspective that I bring into it today. As always, if you got any questions, please email me at recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. And for any questions, comments, concerns, if you haven't already had an opportunity, please hit that subscribe button. It would really help the channel grow. And from the bottom of page 164, may God bless you and keep you until then. Take care and much love.